Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown once again. Now today I am absolutely buzzing in the studio because Manchester United have won not two but three Premier League games on the bounce under Ruben Amorim in what appears to be somewhat of a turning point under the manager. Okay, good morning. As always, welcome back and another thank you very much at the top of this video because we did push for 40,000 subs and now we're currently sitting at around 41,000 and the reception on every video for about the last month and a half has been absolutely unbelievable, to be honest. So thank you again, and obviously another call to action: if you aren't subbed, please be sure to sub, like, comment. It helps us out so much, gives us more time in the studio, gives us everything we want to produce more content. Now, today, as I just mentioned at the top of it, I am ecstatic at the moment as a Manchester United fan, and it's not just because we're 3 wins out of 3 in the Premier League for the first time under Amorim, but it is the way in which Manchester United are currently playing. Now, on this channel, it's been very hard to be very optimistic about Ruben Amorim's sort of tenure so far. I mean, I've got here Manchester United have won 3 Premier League consecutive games for the first time since May-August in 24. Their final 2 games of 23-24 and their first game of 24-25. Doing so in a single season for the first time since February 24, which was 4 in a row. Now, I want to explain to people that I want to give massive credit before we jump into Ruben Amorim, because as we're going to speak about in this video today, we did a video with Neil Harris and we said, why does he not change to going long, defending deeper, etc, etc. Now, since the Sunderland game and almost since the Derby defeat, he has changed so much around this side, around the personnel that's been introduced. And I want to just say before we get into it that this wasn't something that I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to live and die by his idea, and he has proved me wrong. And what he has done is not completely ripped up everything, but he has changed the idea within the system. He's not changed the shape, maybe sometimes on and off the ball, maybe he has, but the system in terms of the actual formation is now currently the same, but the ideas are coming through a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to see how Manchester United are winning games of football. Now, this isn't the first time that Manchester United have won 3 on the bounce under Ruben Amorim. We actually did this in January of 25 with wins against Fulham, Rangers and Steaua Bucharest, in which Manchester United only conceded 1 goal in them games. Now, I am going to go in to speak about straight away what Manchester United are doing, which for me has been probably the best thing that we've done. And we saw it first at Anfield, and it is going long. Now, I am going to go on into speaking about sort of how Manchester United are finding so much success with going long. And it's not hard to explain when you realise that Manchester United have an absolute pillar up front in Benjamin Sesko, who's one of the best headers of the ball that we've seen at Manchester United up front for absolutely years. Now, before we go in to speak about the tactics, I've got on your screen right now a graphic of all of Lammens' passes for Manchester United in the Premier League so far since he's joined. He's played 138 passes, with only 49 of them being successful. But already you can see the amount of long balls that are being played beyond the halfway line. Now, for comparison, I've got Altay Bayındır's pass map, and you can see the difference between sort of his horseshoe-like passing, which is one end to the other end to the other end, and there still is a lot of long balls, but nowhere near as much as Lammens since he has joined Manchester United. Now, that has been a 100% calculated shift from Ruben Amorim. And to explain that, the average possession since Lammens' first start at Manchester United in goal has been 42%, in comparison to the 61% we average with either Andre Onana or Altay Bayındır. So that is a 20% possession drop since the change of the keepers. Now, I want to explain to you really quickly, and it's a similar pattern to the Liverpool game, that when Manchester United are now pushing up against oppositions and we want to, use these long balls, we do the same thing as we did against Liverpool, which is flatten out that forward 3. Now, as we know, Manchester United in build-up have often pushed on their middle centre-half into midfield. Now, something that a lot of people said was that it actually grabs the number 10 of the opposition. So we can imagine this is Rutter and Welbeck against Manchester United's build-up. One of them players is now sitting on Matthias de Ligt, with this player usually closing down the goalkeeper. Now, because of de Ligt's position in midfield, this means that either Bruno Fernandes, it's mostly Bruno Fernandes, or Casemiro can get closer to the forward three for them knockdowns. And that means that when the ball is actually pinged long here, if the opposition has pressed on like Brighton have, again, you can see that ultimate midfield just dominance in terms of the numbers they've got there. Even if Brighton sat with Ayari and Baleba, it is still a 5v4 in that centrepiece. Now, we're talking about Benjamin Sesko being one of the best headers and sort of link-up players we've seen at Manchester United in the last few years, and we did cover him on the channel, and when we mentioned sort of his flick-ons, his aerial success rate in comparison to Xerxes and Højlund, we said that this is a miles better centre-forward for them long balls than either Xerxes or Højlund, and that is proving to be correct. He's played some really difficult centre-halves in sort of Van Dijk, Kanate, Van Heck, even in the Sunderland game, Dan Ballard, one of the best headers of the ball. I just think at the moment this is working very much because of Benjamin Sesko, but it's also working because of him. It's working because of this man right here, which is Bryan Mbeumo. Now, Bryan Mbeumo's got a bit of a different role to Matheus Cunha, and this is where Ruben Amorim's not now like adapting to his personnel. He's not asking the same thing of these two number 10s. He's asking completely different ideas, which last season was a bit of a struggle to make out where the adaptations were coming, whether it was Bruno, Garnacho, Rashford, all them players. Bryan Mbeumo is actually playing almost as a second striker. He's playing next to Sesko, with Cunha playing a little bit of this deeper role, which means he can drop in here, receive the ball, turn and run with the ball. Now, not just Benjamin Sesko, Bryan Mbeumo has been, honestly, I'm going to say some really, really dangerous stuff about Bryan Mbeumo soon, because since he's joined Manchester United, he is one of the most technically elegant players I've seen at this club for the last couple of years. His touch, his ability to pluck down long balls, his runs in behind, his weight of pass, everything, his goal getting, which we've not even talked about, and he's still yet to deliver some of them beautiful in-swinging crosses to the back post, which we noted a lot at Brentford for Kevin Schade. This, right now, is currently working very well for Manchester United because of Benjamin Sesko and Bryan Mbeumo. Not to factor in that it's Senne Lammens is playing really well out of the back. Now, sometimes the passes are a bit flat in the first half against Brighton. There were a few passes that landed a little bit short, but when the ball is reached all the way to the back line, them two midfielders are making really, really good use of them. So now I've got a graphic on your screen from Mark Stats on Twitter, and we can see Manchester United's passing network in the game against Brighton. Now, I just want you to look at how close number 8 and number 18, which is Bruno and Casemiro, are stood next to Benjamin Sesko on this graphic. We can see that Bryan Mbeumo, again, playing a little bit further forward than Cunha, bit more narrow towards Sesko. So when this pass is being played long from Lammens, and de Ligt can make this movement to drag Rutter out of the midfield and open up them spaces and then compete for them second balls, when that ball's going long, if he's stood here, don't get me wrong, this is a very risky place for a transition, but if Welbeck is stood out here and he's already closing down the keeper, if Brighton turn over the ball here, he's most likely still going to be offside. And that is without even talking about the wide centre-halves then pushing up with the second balls. So this is definitely something that has changed under Ruben Amorim. Now, to get you even more data for this Manchester United team in terms of how effectiveness their long balls have been, we have got Manchester United's first 6 Premier League games per game numbers in comparison to their last 3. And we can already see on here their press sequences is roughly about the same, which is the second change which we'll go on to speak about. But their 10 plus passes in open play sequences is almost half, and their goalkeeper passes long percentage is up by 29%, from 56% to 85%. So for me, this is a 100% tactical shift that Ruben Amorim has introduced into this lineup and into this team, with the inclusions of Benjamin Sesko, Bryan Mbeumo, and most importantly, Lammens in there. And whilst Manchester United want to see us build out of press and do all that stuff, Manchester United, for me, as a fan, has been a club where we are very much drilled in the sense of we like fast-paced, hard-working second ball football, which is, can we attack big spaces? Can we use Mbeumo, Sesko, Cunha running in behind, Bruno playing them long balls? And it's working. And I can't give enough credit for Ruben Amorim for sort of tweaking that element of Manchester United, because we have been very, very tough to watch him build up. He still maintains, Ruben Amorim, that Arsenal is our best game of the season. And I think he looks at that in terms of how good we played on the ball as to be why the reason that that game was the best game we've played. But in terms of effectiveness in performance, these last 3 games have been, by a country mile, the best games of the season for Manchester United, by an absolute country mile. And that has all come with a shift on the ball, but now we're going to move on into off the ball and what Manchester United are doing more convincingly in these last 3 games than what they managed to do in the first 6. If you're enjoying the video and want more tactical analysis and podcasts, please press the subscribe button below and hit the bell to enable post notifications. So now moving into what Manchester United are doing off the ball, which is just as good for me as what they are doing on the ball. So I've actually got a stat here that says Manchester United in the Premier League, they've played 5 games with 50 or less possession. In them 5 games, they have won 4 of them and drew 1. And the other games where we had above 50% possession, the 3-0 loss to City, the 3-1 loss to Brentford, the 1-0 loss to Arsenal, the loss to Grimsby, and the eventual 3-2 win against Burnley in the Premier League with Bruno Fernandes' last gasp penalty. Now, Manchester United in the games against Sunderland, Liverpool and Brighton have had very, very different ideas as to what they want to do when it comes to the pressing and the block. And I'm going to explain to you why these games are changing. Now, I watched his press conference at the end of the Brighton game, and he said the performance from Sunderland to the first half and the second half was completely different because they had a lead to protect. And he adapted midway through the game to actually get more, stability in the lineup in terms of probably pressing less, defending more in a block. And that sort of defending of leads is something we are seeing a lot under Ruben Amorim when we take a lead in game state. You compare the Liverpool first half to the second half. Now, 2 more graphics on your screen. I want to show you the zones of control, which is basically, do you have more than 55% of the possession over your opposition in each zone of the pitch? So you can see in their first 6 games how many spots on the pitch Manchester United have had the dominance in terms of control in them areas. So in the first 6 games, you can see it's literally shaped in the 3-4-3. There's a lot of touches in their own half, and there's all the patches going down the wide areas for the wing backs. Compare that to the last 3 games. The only zones Manchester United are controlling are their own penalty area and the top right of the opposition's half. So that is showing that how much Manchester United are realising that without the ball, they can attack bigger spaces with that front 3. And that is going to be our last point to talk about, which is the front 3. But I want to explain to you how good Manchester United have been in the press. Again, another stat from Mark Stats here, which says danger zone losses. Manchester United turned over the ball in Brighton's half 32 times, with 6 of them high turnovers leading directly to Manchester United's shots. So I want to explain to you what they were doing and why it was a lot more convincing to watch Manchester United press, because I don't mind not having a lot of the ball at Manchester United. I really don't mind it. But in terms of the games when you play these teams at home in Brighton, bearing in mind we've lost 6 of the last 7 in the Premier League to this Brighton team, we need to be on the front foot, whether it's on the ball or off the ball. And I've got no problem in playing direct, but then if we lose the ball, how high can we press? And in this game, it was the most convincing I've seen. So Brighton like to build up in this sort of 4-2-2 with the 2 wingers holding width. And what I mean by this is Danny Welbeck and Rutter drop all the way into the edge of the box, and that is to create that sort of +1 and ask the question of Man United, can they follow the strikers all the way in? Now, if I just structure this how it is, we've got Sesko, Mbeumo, Amad Diallo pushed up, Cunha on that left midfielder, fullbacks, the 2 midfielders on the 2 midfielders, and then if we push it up like this, so this is how it looks. So we've got Dalot, we've got Dalot, probably Luke Shaw, De Ligt, and then over here on the right-hand side, we have Yoro. So this is how it would look in principle. Now, when Brighton look to drop one of their midfielders into the build-up, Luke Shaw and Matheus De Ligt were having full conviction and full confidence, and I do believe this is something that has come from Amorim, getting the confidence in the wins and convincing his players that it can work, because this has always been the question of Manchester United under Amorim. The centre-halves have to follow that deep into the opposition's half. They have to. And it's a very, very risky strategy, but Luke Shaw and Matheus De Ligt were sometimes finding themselves in midfield, off the ball, stood on Brighton's number 10 and striker, who were dropping all the way into midfield. So already that was working. Now, Again, we mentioned this in the pre-season piece, but Manchester United were pressing in a 4-4-2 in pre-season. Again, in the Brighton game, we saw it come back. It wasn't the 5-2-3 with the 3 forwards, the 2 midfielders and a flat line of 5. It was the 4-4-2 once again. Now, I've got a couple of screenshots to throw up on your screen of sort of game situations that translate this. So in the first one, we've got sort of the build-up from Brighton in 3 minutes 50. Now, in this picture, you can see that Brighton have got them 2 sitting midfielders, the back line with the winger a bit deeper. The guy who is just behind Casemiro in this picture is Danny Welbeck, and on his shoulder is Matthias de Ligt, and just to the left of him is Luke Shaw. They are 2 of Manchester United's 3 centre-backs pressing in the opposition's third at home against a very, very tricky team in Brighton Hove Albion. So we're talking about the conviction in the press. Now, Ruben Amorim, in fairness to him, this has always, in my idea, been his idea. Like, that's what he wants to do, but it's the reservations in the back line. Now, Ruben Amorim actually said in response to these comments made by the press saying, "You pressed so much well today, what was the difference?" He said, "That was the plan when we have Maguire to defend lower because he can defend the box so well. When we have Luke Shaw, we can press higher. We know they are confident in the press because they know if they win the ball high, they only need one chance for that forward 3. They are that good." So when we've got Luke Shaw, Matthias de Ligt has been one of Manchester United's best players this season, without a shadow of a doubt. His physical levels, his box defending, he's not that flashy on the ball, but he doesn't need to be. When you play as a middle centre-half in this 3-4-3, can you press high? Can you win the duels? Can you win the knockdowns? Can you defend your own box? He is one of the best players Manchester United have got at doing that. So that is how Manchester United were pressing in this game against Brighton. Now, if I take this back, this wasn't something that completely evaporated when Manchester United defended a bit lower. So if we took it back into the 5-2-3, and sometimes we did drop into a 5-4-1 as we've always wanted. Sometimes Bryan Mbeumo was staying a bit closer to Sesko, Cunha down the side, and that allows Amad Diallo to actually make these movements, Yoro pushing out wide when we want to trigger the press on the right side. So sometimes, I've actually just messed that up, there we go. So sometimes we would defend in this block, as we've often seen. Now, if we push it on again into Brighton's attacking shape, and they were actually building up in a 3, so sometimes their fullbacks would actually get a bit further on, which means Cunha would actually drop a little bit more. And Ruben Amorim praised Cunha for his sort of defensive retreats in these pockets of space, because Cunha's a player who wants to close down, but sometimes you have to sit in if the fullbacks are pushed on. Now, even in the block, and this was really, really good for Manchester United. Even in the block, Brighton were actually looking to drop out Danny Welbeck, and Luke Shaw was still following into midfield, even in the block. I've got a picture now from 1.5 minutes in against Brighton, and you can see where Luke Shaw is stood in comparison to the rest of the back line. So Brighton are not really occupying Manchester United's back line, apart from Danny Welbeck on de Ligt. But Rutter is playing just in front here in the block, and Luke Shaw has gone to close him down, and it almost looks like a 4-1-4-1 at times. And that is what Manchester United need to get more competent with. We saw it in Ruben Amorim's first game when we went to Ipswich away. Mazraoui played right centre-half, and he was following all the way up into midfield. That's somewhat been lost this season, and I'm not really sure why, but I believe it's obviously the confidence in the players to actually do them roles and think that it's going to work. In this game, Man United's got 6 shots from high turnovers, so the proof is in the pudding for this Manchester United team to press high. And again, the final game screenshot is on 22.5 minutes, which is showing that 4-4-2 press from Manchester United. This is just before Matheus Cunha's goal. And Manchester United win the ball back actually from this 4-4-2 press. And because Mbeumo is a little bit higher up with Sesko here, these 2 players, when they get the ball, turn the high turnover into a transition. And automatically, when they win the ball, I think it's Sesko who's driving forward. There is so many bodies flooding in behind. And we're not talking about Diogo Dalot and Mazraoui, or Dorgu and Dalot. We're talking about Matheus Cunha, Amad Diallo, Bruno Fernandes. Them players are just so much more threatening than when we played the fullbacks at wing back. And that is, in my opinion, what the final iteration of Ruben Amorim's Manchester United is going to look like. A direct team on the ball who competes incredibly well for second balls. And Ruben Amorim, again, deserves massive credit for sort of instilling the physical levels into this team, because it is one of the fittest Manchester United teams I've seen in a long time. And that has also come with the signings in Mbeumo, Cunha, very, very good pressers. But The physical levels of this side to go end to end and play direct, I have no problem playing direct. It works. We've got a 6'5" striker who's imperious in the air. We've got Mbeumo who works incredibly well off knockdowns, who's a great spinner in behind. Cunha, scrappy second ball player. Bruno Fernandes Casemiro, exceptional on second balls when they're higher up in the opposition's half. And when them balls are won by them two, their ability to play them in behind is really, really good. So direct on the ball, I've got absolutely no problem with Manchester United doing that. What I wanted from this Brighton game, and this is the reason why I'm way more excited after this Brighton game than what I was about the Liverpool game, is sometimes you can defend low. Sometimes you need to go to a 5-4-1 and you need to shut off all the space for the opposition, as we did against Liverpool. It's these games against the mid-table teams who are going to come to Old Trafford and try and play with the ball. And it's about, are we going to sit there and are we going to let them have as much of the ball as we did with Liverpool? We didn't. We pressed really high. And Brighton did cut through it sometimes. They were using these really nice diagonal runs from the wingers to catch out Shaw when he was stepping in like that. So Shaw would step in with Rutter, and Minter and Kadioglu were looking to make them diagonal runs in behind. Sometimes it worked, but I think the efficiency of the press was definitely into Manchester United's favour. And this was the game where I was hoping to be like, okay, I like the directness. We can actually make it work against pretty much every team because of the striker, the front three we've got, the defenders in behind, the midfielders in behind the ball to win the seconds. These sort of players like Amad Diallo arriving late after the second ball's won. That's great. But I wanted to see a Manchester United that were on the front foot when they were pressing. And this Brighton game proved to me that the mentality is right for Manchester United to press high against these opposition teams, even when they are building out really, really well. And Brighton, to be fair to them, look really well coached. They did sometimes get in behind us. Everyone remembers that Minter offside chance here. Could have definitely been 1-0. But the efficiency to keep going with that press throughout the game is something that Ruben Amorim deserves massive credit for. And I think the confidence is now building in this team. So yeah, I am going to move on now into the final section, which is just going to be a little bit on the top about Benjamin Sesko, Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. And I'm not going to put a card in because I don't really need to prep for this because these three lads have been really, really good. They've got 10 goals and assists between all three of them in all competitions this season, and they have been magnificent. I think Benjamin Sesko, we mentioned this on the channel, and if you want to go back to the video, people were a bit surprised at how excited I was about Sesko. I think he can become one of the best centre-forwards in Europe. I think he's got so much toolage in his arsenal. I think he's got so much about him. The technical ability already, I didn't think was ever going to be a question with him. And we've seen it for that Bryan Mbeumo goal, to spin on the ball here. When have Manchester United had a centre-forward who's Ronaldo chopping on the ball at the edge of the opposition's box to play in these narrow wingers who are making these movements? And I think Sesko's been really good, but I think he's got even more in him. I think he's got way more in him. I think the physicality, when someone puts pressure on his back, I think he can do better with that. But at the moment, you're seeing that raw pace, power. The aerials are fantastic. Like, he's such a good aerial presence. But then off him, we've got Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, and Cunha really did deserve that goal, especially after that last 15, 20 minutes at Anfield. I thought he was absolutely exceptional. And I love these sort of positions he's picking up on the left side of Bruno, where he can take the ball and run forward. He's now scored, Matheus Cunha, the most goals from outside the box in the Premier League since the start of last season. And we mentioned that when we signed Cunha, we need more X-factor players in this lineup. We need players who are going to take shots. We've got Bruno, but he's a bit deeper now, and we've replaced them sort of long-range quality efforts with a player like Matheus Cunha, who's got a completely different profile in terms of a ball carrier rather than a passer. But he deserved that goal. I'm very happy for him. I think he's been incredible, and he's just got that right personality and character where you look at him and you go, he looks like a Manchester United player. When we go against the big sides, he almost relishes the occasion rather than shies away. And I think we've had too many players who have sort of, not put the extra yards in, who have, gone down on a tackle and not got up straight away. And I think there was a report about him reporting early back from Brazil, from the Brazil camp. He showed up a day early when he shouldn't have been there. I think Amorim told him to have the day off, and he's still shown up. And it's that character and application to the craft which has just been amazing. And then on the right, Bryan Mbeumo is just something I've not really seen at United before in terms of the skill set he has. I think his sturdiness on the ball, his touch, the way he bounces off players, his goal getting. I feel like he's one of the most inevitable players in that position there with the ball. he's just that left foot inside is absolutely brilliant. And there was a lot of talk about him overperforming his numbers last season. I don't think people were realising sort of how good he is in them hot zone areas. In them areas, just narrow with the box on the right-hand side. And even if he's not scoring, he's got an unbelievable slip ball, crosses to the back post. He's got everything. And I think more than anything, he works harder than the majority of the players on the pitch. And yeah, he has been a revelation for Manchester United. And I hope he continues to go because, yeah, the front three looks like it's really, really starting to click. And I think the idea that Manchester United could have reallocated money to a midfielder, and I still think Manchester United do need a midfielder. I don't think it's a fine solution to always have this problem, but this, having De Ligt stand there and then actually just skipping over the midfield on the ball with the keeper, just getting the ball at the keeper and going, well, put De Ligt in midfield, take that player away from Lammens, when this player closes it down, hit it long into that front three and watch them battle for it. That kind of takes every need to control the game out of these two players right here. And we still need that. Manchester United will need control eventually to have this long-term sustainability of good games. But I think Amorim has looked at it and gone, well, we've not really got the midfielder now, so let's just go over the midfield every single time and ask the question of the forwards. And it's working. And I've got to say, lads, I'm absolutely buzzing with Manchester United so far in these last 3 games. I think the adaptations that he's introduced have just shown me a different sort of layer to Ruben Amorim, and yeah, it's really, really exciting. So I'm going to leave it there, but yeah, I think Manchester United fans have got a right to get really happy, and it's probably the longest sort of good performance stretch we've had under Amorim since he's come in. So yeah, get excited. I'm excited. Forest away is going to be a massive test up against Sean Dyche because they offer a completely different challenge than what we have faced in these last 3 games, but yeah, definitely get excited. Let us know what you've made of Manchester United in these last 3 games. And yeah, give us a like, comment, share it about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back next week for some more analysis on the overlap breakdown. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.